Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch Project podcast. I finally got OBS working again after the last update. It wasn't recording with sound for a while. It's January 10th, 2023, doing a little bit of an early podcast today at 12:30 p.m. right here on the east coast of the USA. Today's topic is interesting. It came up when I was listening to the Quash podcast. If you haven't heard of the Quash podcast, it's a lawyer, or I should say more like an ex-lawyer. He's really into freedom now and does a very interesting podcast from a lawyer's perspective that has awakened to the BS of the system. So he did this podcast. Apparently, most people are really NPCs. Now, to stop anybody from being upset, I am not saying that people that don't have inner monologues are necessarily NPCs. That is not what I'm saying at all. I am simply exploring this peculiar phenomena from my perspective here, because I do have an inner monologue and I have a very powerful visual imagination. We'll get all into that in a minute. So, if you're new here, my website is OverwatchProject.com. Hopefully the sound is okay now that I've tinkered with it for a while. So my website is OverwatchProject.com. I have a new little intro text here. I think I'll just read it to you because it kind of sums up everything. Welcome to the Overwatch Project. The Overwatch Project is about investigating reality without the biases and manipulations that come from established sciences and religions. I investigate all of the information available to me with a strong effort not to use cognitive dissonance to come to conclusions that make sense without contradictions. My hypothesis is that the Earth material realm and the Earth immediate spirit realms, aka astral planes, is part of a reincarnation soul farm that behaves very similar to a video game. The game of life, it can be addicting and has no learning potential for souls that reincarnate here with repeated amnesia. Some souls have reincarnated here many times, possibly thousands of times. The answer to the mystery of life and the afterlife is to study this for yourself. Embrace your true individuality. Realize that there is no external authority that controls you. Authority on the earth material plane is actually coercion and force. In the spirit realm, only your earthly baggage can fuel the illusion that you can be controlled there or contained here. Purge all the brainwashing and programming that binds you here. There are realms out there that will not trick you into agreeing to enslave yourself. Study all you can while you have time in this incarnation. After your earthly avatar releases you, create your own private protective void, regain your complete mind and identity, use your intentions to gather all the information you want about everything unrestricted, and then travel wherever you want simply by using intentions to go to better realms without amnesia or surrendering yourself to a slave system. Never be tricked again. Be free and ascend to a higher existence with your true and complete self. So that sums it up for all the newbies on here. So there is this thing about inner monologue. Now, apparently people that have inner monologue can't believe that people don't have it. People that don't have it can't believe people that do have it. Then there's the whole added visual imagination thing. The ability to essentially see whatever you want to see by simply conjuring it with your will and your thoughts. So my visual imagination is very powerful. It not only can let me see things in my head that I can create visually, I can also project how something in my imagination would look like in the outside world. So if I want to see, I don't know, Star Destroyer in the sky, I can just imagine what it would look like there, and I kind of can picture it there. Inner monologue. So I have an inner voice that talks to. It's kind of like me talking to myself inside my head. Now, some people just don't have this. Okay, it's very interesting, and I've kind of looked into this a while ago, but I kind of put it to the side. I haven't thought about it in a while, and then I heard the Quash's podcast, so I thought I'd bring it up again. Now I will link to the Quash, his podcast here. Everything in these tabs I'll link to in the description section below, so you can check it out for yourself. This video is going to be posted initially on YouTube, and then it'll populate to Odyssey and to BitChute. And please, 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 if you go to my website, I have a Odyssey link. It will show you 3 Odyssey channels I have. The top one here, Odyssey Overwatch channel, is essentially an exact mirror of my entire YouTube channel. Please sign up there. As you know, terms of service keep changing, and the latest news isn't that good. So please sign up on Odyssey. For now, that is the best option I have found at the moment. Not too many people watch my videos there, but it would be nice if more people did. I will start putting up videos there that are exclusive. So anyway, the inner monologue. So this guy here in this channel, PA Struggles, he found a friend that doesn't have an inner monologue. So he decided to ask her questions. And a lot of his questions are great. He did a good job, but there were questions that, based on the stuff I research here about the afterlife, about different types of consciousness that possibly exist, and all this other stuff. I really have more different types of questions, which I'll tell you here. And if you happen to be a person that has no inner monologue, if you would please answer any of these questions, that would be fantastic. So I'm not here to insult or demean people or say that there's something wrong with you if you don't have it. It does feed into the NPC meme, and I'll explain why as we go on here, but it's something that you really, I'm trying to understand more than anything. So, so he basically asked her the obvious questions like, how do you read? But what I'd like to know, and you can watch this video, it covers all the basic stuff. Then there's this really interesting and kind of bizarre video of this girl here. She explains how she reads. She has no inner monologue, and then you'll really start to question the whole NPC meme when you watch that. This guy here wonders if people with ADHD are real players in the game of life, and other people are NPCs. Interesting. Aiden Paladin usually does like freedom-based, more anarchist type videos, but did a video looking into it. I don't necessarily agree with their conclusion or with the conclusion of the scientists that study this stuff, mainly because the scientists filter everything through a materialistic, the materialism lens that they're only allowed to operate in, and not too many scientists, divert from that path, and they therefore, in my opinion, don't see things as they actually are. They see things with cognitive dissonance, and they have to disregard the spirit realm. They have to disregard all the evidence we have that consciousness exists apart from the human physical existence. And, if you're a materialist, oh, there's no such thing as evidence for that. Well, you're just uninformed, and this isn't the channel for you, so go somewhere else. So anyway, like, for example, scientists insist that consciousness is kind of like many scientists think it's in a so-called illusion, and they believe that it actually emanates from the brain. Instead, you could actually get the same results of the problems we have with brain function if you see the brain as a processor of science, of consciousness. Like an atheistic materialist will say, well, if you damage this section of the brain or you poke it with this probe, this will happen or that will happen. And to them, that's proof that consciousness is simply a product of the brain, the physical brain. But if you took say, like a computer, and to use the comparison of a processor and a computer, and you tinkered around with it or you messed with it, you might think, if you thought everything was contained in the processor, you might think that you messing around with the processor causing weird things to happen is because everything is contained in the processor, when it obviously isn't. So the human brain most probably is a processor of information, of consciousness. It is as Rupert Sheldrake said, a reducing valve, which is to me harmful to our consciousness because why do we want to be reduced? Um, anyway, people don't have an internal monologue, don't have an inner voice, and they don't really talk to themselves inside their head. And some people don't have visual imagination. Now, if you ever read Tesla's autobiography, you'll see just how powerful this really, really genius inventor had with his both visual and internal imagination, and probably a very, very powerful inner monologue. And in his autobiography, he wrote how he could visualize things in like a holographic way in the real world, and he would invent something in his head and then visualize it and tinker with it and create actual working models of something by simply imagining them, altering them, tuning them up, improving them, coming up with different versions without ever actually building anything physical yet. So that's my biggest question. How does someone with no internal monologue and no visual imagination, how could they invent anything? Could they invent anything? If so, how did they invent it? Something that hasn't existed. How would a person with no inner monologue write fiction that didn't exist yet? Not something that is copied, not something that is copied or but an original piece of fiction. How would you write it? How would you imagine the scenery, the stuff you're writing about? If you listen to this interview with this girl here who doesn't have an inner monologue, and if you listen to other people, there's a lot of other sources out there. I'm just linking to the tip of the iceberg here. But if you listen to these people with no inner monologues describe their how they process stuff, it does sound much like they get input and they put out output. That seems to be what she's describing. That when she reads, she sees the flow of the words of the sentence, or she somehow sees like the information of the words. But that is really, really weird because there's no referee. It's just input output. Like if you use Siri or Google Assistant, it's not like Google Assistants, they're daydreaming and being bored or thinking about stuff when you're not interacting with it. It's just sitting there listening for information, and then when it gets certain things that it feels like it should respond to, it will respond. But it's just responding with this AI algorithm. It doesn't have the capability of sitting there and creating something that doesn't exist. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? If you don't have a visual imagination, like when she describes, like if she reads fiction, she does, if I remember right, this interview, she doesn't really like to read fiction, which she gets like the plot points. She understands the plot, but there's no rich visual creation in our mind where it's like a movie playing, right? So when I'm reading something, I don't read as fast, obviously. It takes me longer to read. But that's because there's a referee in my head analyzing or commentating about not only is there a voice reading the words, but there's also kind of like a pause to reflect on what I just read. Now, this I attribute to my ability to investigate things and to come to conclusions that don't contradict themselves. And that's how I became aware of my cognitive dissonance, and I got that under control. And all the problems I dealt with when I first started looking into this stuff, the meaning of life, and all that stuff. And so these are questions that really want an answer. If someone has no inner monologue, how do they deal with moral dilemmas? Another question that wasn't asked. How does somebody deal with a moral dilemma? Because my inner voice is I asked around. Actually, I did ask around some people I know, and so far everybody I know has inner monologue. One person told me they thought, well, isn't that my conscious? Like my not my consciousness, but she meant like the her moral compass. That's what she thought that was. That kind of tells her, no, don't do this, do that. That's wrong. Don't do that. But if is somebody with no inner monologue capable of questioning authority if it's a perceived authority? If you have a premise that authority exists, that it's legitimate, and authority tells you to do something and it's wrong, but authority told you to do is wrong, how do you question that with where does that come from? Then there's the whole concept of, is this a brain function that is further, as an altered way of processing consciousness? So non-physical consciousness incarnates into a human being. It's born, you're born and then you grow up. In the first 7 years, you have the hypnagogic state. Is there something in the environment that causes the inner voice to come out? Is it something that you're born with? Is there different types of consciousness? Has somebody potentially reincarnated so many times that they've lost themselves? They're kind of like asleep at the switch. Is that a thing? Is the NPC thing something to consider here? Or is it a different type of consciousness? Like, is there an individual consciousness? And is there a hive mind type of consciousness, a actual collective consciousness? And when a collective consciousness incarnates as a human, they're just part of one part of themselves. So I don't know. There's so many different things to look at in this thing, and a lot of other things I mentioned before. A lot of stuff is geared in the reincarnation soul trap here to get you to surrender your individuality. That ensures that there's a high probability that you're almost certain to get back in line for another round. Plus, being on Earth here is probably as addicting as a video game, because once you're released, you kind of get the sense of your immortality again. You're a non-physical being again. The chaos, suffering, excitement, complete and utter good versus evil that goes on here may be something that once you're out of your body, it can become actually tempting to go back in. Think about gamers. I'm a gamer, think about it. How many times has a gamer been pissed off at a game, rage quit a game, gone off to play a different game? Call of Duty comes to mind. And then you go back to the game that infuriated you. That happens, right? So something to be concerned about. And this big push. Some types of meditation try to get you to turn off this inner speech. And why? They want you to believe. They tell you, sources out there that come off as these. They have like this guru label attached to them. Like we're told so much garbage or potential garbage from things, sources, people that present themselves or speak as though they got the information from some kind of quote unquote guru, and then nobody questions it really. Um, so there's a kind of common new age thing, common thing in meditation that the inner voice isn't really you. Well, what if it actually is you? What if that's the actual real you? What if the inner voice is you talking like, to your inside your mind, kind of like interacting with the avatar state here, with the human physical state here, and its ability to be like a referee or and somebody that helps analyze yourself as you're moving through this game of life. I'm not sure it's a really good idea to shut that off, or I don't think so. First of all, this is a really bad picture. This guy looks blank. And yeah, he makes a point here that people with no inner speech can read faster. Well, yeah, if you're reading like a computer, you can read faster. So this is something that is really, I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer is. So that's about all I got to say on it. I'm more interested in hearing from people out there, like, how do you process a moral debate in your mind? We've seen recent history, people just complying. And how many, if you have really rich internal monologue, visual imagination, and if you're one of the people that follow me or watch my videos for because you're in agreement with me, not because you're following me because I'm any kind of leader, because I'm not leading you anywhere. This is a personal journey of individuals as far as I'm concerned. I'm just sharing the information out there for other people that may find it interesting, useful in their own personal research, and you do what you want with it. But how many people have had the encounter with somebody and it does seem like they're on autopilot? The true NPC personality that you meet out there. I mean, you've met them, right? They are still stuck in 2 year ago mode. They are they do very bizarre behaviors. Like maybe you're driving down the street in a state that has really no stuff going on and no requirements, and then you look and somebody's in a car by themselves driving down the road with the thing on. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, you're like, what is or is not going on in that person's head? Or maybe you're talking to somebody, it could be about anything, and it seems like they're giving you canned robotic answers, like an NPC would. Does this world actually have NPCs? And I'm not saying that's actually connected to the inner monologue thing. I'm just saying, is that part of it? Maybe, I don't know. So that's it. I'll link to all this below. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this sound works and doesn't sound too awful. But honestly, every time OBS updates, it's an adventure. Also, before I check out, Mark from Forever Consciousness channel told me to check out Cyberpunk 2077. It's a video game. Didn't really play when it came out because I heard it was a disappointment compared to the hype that I had before it, but it was discounted, so I bought it, played it on my PS4 Pro, And the game does have um, a lot of esoteric stuff in there. It's very interesting how they always want to tell you what's coming and how it works. So that's my Chihuahua. He just got up and he's wandering around the room here. So, all right, I gotta go. I'll talk to you later. Look for the links below, and if you have no inner monologue or no visual imagination, please tell me how you deal with the things I've talked about here. Talk to you later. Bye.